Okay, welcome everyone to this event titled A Zero Waste Campus is Possible. This event is part of Bellevue College's Earth Week, where we are exploring topics around the theme, The Future is Now, which strives for a just and sustainable future for all. You can see our full schedule of events via a link I will put into the chat box. My name's Amber Nicholson, and if you don't know me, I'm from the Bellevue College Office of Sustainability, and I will be moderating this event and potentially also with my colleague Theo. Before we get started, we have a few things to go over. You are muted on joining, and we would like for you to stay on mute unless you are actively asking a question or responding to a prompt from the speaker. If you'd like to keep your camera on, it does make for a more engaging session for everyone and helps us build community. This event is also being recorded to post on our sustainability website. So if you're uncomfortable with being recorded on video or if you need to change your name, feel free to do so now. Throughout the session, please treat everyone with respect and share your comments and questions in the chat box. We will open up for Q&A at the end, where you can either unmute yourself or have us read out your questions. For the best Zoom experience, click the speaker view button in the top right corner of your screen, which will make sure that the speaker who's active is centered on your screen. Lastly, we pause to acknowledge that Bellevue College resides on the traditional and occupied land of the Coast Salish peoples, past, present, and future, that includes but is not limited to Snoqualmie, Suquamish, Duwamish, Nisqually, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot. We honor their connection to the region, pay respect to Coast Salish elders past and present, and stand in solidarity through their struggles with continued systemic oppression. We commit to care for the land and water and center equity at the core of our unlearning. Now, let me take a quick moment to introduce our speaker, Ramiro. Ramiro studied marketing and environmental studies at the University of South Carolina. He now works at the Post Landfill Action Networks as the Post Landfill Action Network's Director of Events. In his role, he works on the planning and execution of PLAN's larger events, such as their annual Students for Zero Waste Conference in the fall and their Beyond Waste Student Summit series in the spring. Welcome, Ramiro. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Amber. Just for a quick clarity check, I have until when? Is it 50 minutes? Or?
So yeah, it's 50 minutes. It can go a little long if needed, but yeah, 50 minutes is a standard.
No, just making sure so
Yep.
I can keep it to, yeah, so I will be sharing my screen. Hopefully I figured out how to do Zoom, but if not, let me know, everybody. I'm gonna try to make it so I can still interact with the chat. Every now and then it will show a little black box on your screen. If it does do that, let me know in the chat. And if it's like intrusive, I'll try to put it somewhere where it's not super intrusive if it is doing that. But if it's, and hopefully it doesn't. So let's do this. So minimize this. I'm trying to open up the chat for me. So hello, everybody. Let me know, as we're getting started, please let me know if you all can see the box in the chat. And if so, Amber, I might ask you for support and just reading out questions as they come up.
Absolutely, that's what I'm here for.
So hello, everybody. Like Amber said, my name is Ramiro. I work with PLAN, the Post Landfill Action Network, as a director of events. I use he, him pronouns, and I've been working with PLAN for about 2 years now. So as we're getting started, I'd love to get a feel for the who's in the room. So we can do a quick, if we could do a quick round of introductions in the chat. Just if you could put in your name, your pronouns. I know we're all on Bellevue, but maybe like what you do on Bellevue. If you're a student, are you like faculty, staff? What are you up to? And then an icebreaker question of if you could have a sustainability superpower, what would it be? So I'll start us off on my end. If I could have any sustainability superpower, it depends on what mood I'm in. There's so many things I wish I could do. But I think because it's spring, things are blooming, I'm in that like plant growing mood. So I would probably do a like accelerating the growth of plants. So like if I could touch a plant and then it would like exponentially grow. so that we can like make things grow quicker. That's kind of what I would focus on. Yeah, like I said, everybody please throw that into the chat. I'll just kind of what I see I see a couple people in here, so I really interested in seeing what's happened. If we have time at the end, I'd love to go back and circle around and talk a little bit more about these. So quick style of the presentation, we're going to be focusing on intro to plan, just kind of for y'all if you're not familiar, and then defining the problem of like what's the problem, why are we talking about zero waste, talking about plan's point of intervention theory. We're also going to be talking about like student power as a catalyst for change and what role like students on a college campus play. And
before you go any further, I just want to interrupt you real quick. I don't know if anybody else is seeing this, but I'm seeing some black boxes over top of your
All right, so
PowerPoint.
that's the chat. I'm going to close the chat. With that, Amber, like I said, feel free to like
Yep, I'll monitor those. Yep.
Yes, please. Perfect.
Yeah, okay, I think we're good now.
Let me see if I can more hide video panel. Cool. Cool. So kind of getting into the presentation. So a little bit more about Plan. Plan right now is a 7-year-old nonprofit. We started at the University of New Hampshire. When we first started, we were dedicated to just move out programs, focusing on, if you all are familiar with the University of New Hampshire, like the trash to treasure story, maybe not, but what was really important and key about that particular program, it was the first ever student-led self-sustaining program of its kind. So what that means is that that program on its own managed to pay for itself, and like it paid for itself, and it also was entirely run by students. And that was like the first time anything like that had ever been seen. And when people got wind of that, they were interested. People started reaching out to Plan, and they were like, hey, can you help us start something like that on our own campus? And that's kind of where the idea and the conception for Plan began, where we were focusing on, like, we saw a need that other schools, other students wanted to start programs. They just didn't have the resources. They didn't have the know-how on how to do that. So Plan came in, and we started advising people on how to start move-out programs. And as the move-out programs started rolling, and as more and more people started doing move-out programs, they started coming to us with other questions of, hey, like, can you help us with like food recovery? Hey, can you help us with we want to start doing other sustainability initiatives on our campus. We started seeing that there was like a need for Plan beyond just move out. So nowadays, Plan does significantly more than just move out. We work with 370 campuses across 42 states, as well as, like we always say, like accidentally international. We've accidentally gotten in contact with people from all over. So, you know, we work with some schools in Canada. We work with some schools in Japan, Ireland, Australia, Brazil. It's been very nice. We've had the opportunity. This is a picture of our team. Plan is a relatively small team. We are only 11 people, but we say strong but mighty. We are set in a lot of different places. We have staff in California. We're based in Philadelphia nowadays, but we also have our we also have another office in New Hampshire. I'm based in South Carolina currently because of COVID. So we're everywhere, but you know, we work with, and no matter where you are, we probably are working with somebody near you. And like I was saying, once we started working and once we started doing, working with students, while we started with move out programs, we saw that there was so much of a bigger need for campus advising and campus work beyond that. So nowadays we do a lot more than just move out advising. We do campus and campus advising and have like a whole membership, which Bellevue is a member school. Like I said, my whole role is doing students are hosting our events. So we have our Student for Zero Waste conference, which is usually held under normal circumstances in Philadelphia, where we bring in over 500 students from across the country to talk and work with like experts and like attend a bunch of sessions. It's our like weekend long conference. We also do regional Beyond Waste student summits. Last year we had 4 regional summits, one in Washington State at Spokane with Gonzaga. We had another one in Florida. We had another one in New York. We had another one in New Hampshire, not New Hampshire. It's in Newport News, which is why I'm confusing it, and that is in Virginia. This year, obviously, with everything, all of our events have gone digital. So we're currently doing our Beyond Waste Student Summits. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the very, very end. But you know, also working on that. We also do a lot of tailored speaking events similar to this one, but beyond that. Outside of that, we also do the Break Free from Plastic Campus Pledge. So you all might be familiar with the International Break Free from Plastic movement. Plan serves as like the youth coordinator for the Break Free from Plastic movement. So we work with college campuses to sign the Break Free from Plastic Pledge, which is essentially getting your college president to sign, saying that you're committing to removing from or getting rid of all single-use plastic on your campus, which we are actually working with. I can't remember the student right now. I'm sorry, but we're working. Our BFFB coordinator is working with a student at Bellevue right now.
Yeah, that student's name is Gia Lang, and Gia is the ASG social responsibility representative.
Thank you so much. And then we also do Atlas Consulting. Atlas Consulting is like looking at waste from a lot larger lens than just how we typically talk about it. So talking about procurement, bringing a lot of the decision makers on the campus together to target and get work out on waste from the source. So that's just a little bit of what Plan does, and I'm more than willing to answer some questions at the end. But as we're getting into it, I want to stop and just ask, as we're talking about a zero waste campus is possible, what is zero waste? How do you all define zero waste? And I'm gonna pause here. This is, throw it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, please feel free to unmute yourself here. And I'm gonna open up the chat again, so you might see the box again.
All ideas are welcomed.
I'll throw something out there.
Please.
I define zero waste as making it as much as possible that your inputs are recyclable or compostable or easily reusable. And the reason why plastic doesn't really fit super well into that category is because there's quite a few items that aren't recyclable at this point that are plastic. So zero waste would mean essentially having a circular economy with your products, in my mind.
Also, looking at the chat, I believe I like to believe the concept of zero waste is that absolutely everything is reused unless consumed, without a means of creating an all-in-one dump. And yeah, it's been really interesting seeing the progression of how people have answered this. When I used to ask this question 2 years ago, the answers were significantly different. And it's been so interesting to see the progression of how people are defining zero waste. So with that, in a professional sense, a lot of universities, a lot of people, when they're giving out their zero waste goal, our goal is to go zero waste by X date. What they are talking about, the common definition is at least 90% diversion from landfill to or incineration. Now, a lot of that, we don't agree with that. In a lot of ways, the common definition is only really focusing on one section of the zero waste hierarchy. This is a really great graphic from Energy Justice Network. I really recommend everybody go check it out. But when we're talking about standard zero waste, the common definition that a lot of universities, that a lot of individuals use, they're talking about recycling and compost. And that's just a small sliver of waste as a whole. So when Plan talks about zero waste, or when we talk about tackling waste on a campus, we're talking about it from a little bit bigger view than just the standard definition that is like traditionally used. Talking about reusing materials, reducing materials, rethinking and redesigning the waste that we are having, so that ultimately there's less stuff to deal with. And that's kind of where the typical diversion metric is flawed and kind of doesn't agree with us, because diversion, the bottom line is like net weight. And if you reduce the bottom line of net weight, then like your overall diversion number goes down, even though you produced less waste, because there was less waste to begin with. And we can get really like deep into that. That's a whole other session. But when Plan talks about diversion, and that's why we like are constantly arguing with that idea of diversion, is that diversion in itself doesn't really, at least how we talk about it right now, this like the industry standard of diversion, doesn't really reflect true zero waste. And why is that? I mean, it's because of the system that we live within, the system of the linear consumption economy. And diversion, how we talk about it now, is only talking about the last two steps of the linear consumption economy. It's only talking about the consumption and the disposal. When true zero waste and true diversion should be talking about waste all the way from the beginning, from extraction. So going from extraction to production to distribution to consumption to disposal, what can we do to intervene? What can we do to work within these systems to reduce waste? Because waste does not become waste only at disposal. Waste becomes waste all the way from extraction. So when we're thinking about waste, and we're thinking about, when Plan talks about waste, we are not just talking about the land of away that we have been sold and that we've been taught since forever, that when we throw things away, they're just going away, and we don't need to worry about where away is, because it's just going to be taken care of. We just need to get rid of it. Away is away. So this brings us to like Plan's, this brings us to like some of the areas that Plan like sees and addresses as like some 5 key issues with typical disposal, the way that we talk about waste. And it's, the consumer culture, or the landfills and incinerators, like environmental racism that comes associated with a lot of this, the global climate change, and like resource depletion. So getting into consumer culture, we are in a culture that says, I shop, therefore I am. Our purchases, what we buy, what we have, what we own, define our personality in a lot of ways, or at least that's what they want us to believe. An example of this is that, okay, we all have a very similar, like everybody has an iPhone, let's say. Well, I don't want to have the same iPhone as you do. So what do I do to differentiate my phone from your phone to show my personality? Well, I'm going to buy like a case, or I'm going to buy a little, like a new key ring, or I'm going to buy a shirt that like defines that shows how I am different from you because I now own this physical possession that like defines and shows my personality. And like in a lot of ways that's kind of flawed, is it not? And we see that through marketing. I mean, there's this ad. It's make it party. It says toast, play, dance, love, flirt, kiss. You look at this ad and you're like, what are they selling here? And I'll stop. What are they selling here? Let me know in the chat. What do you all think they're selling in here? This is an ad. This is a real ad that people selling you a product. What product are they selling? Alcohol, beverage, stockings. A bedazzled kid. Yeah, okay. So a party table furniture. Okay. So who is this ad from? Well, this is an ad from Urban Outfitters. This is a clothing ad. So you were close, Theo, with the stockings guess. But in reality, they're not selling you clothing here. They're not telling you what the clothes are made out of. They're not telling you how durable the clothes are. Like they're not telling you, oh, now available in this. They are selling you a lifestyle that if you want to be what I'm assuming this is like, cool. If you want to be cool, if you want to be like the people in this picture, you shop at Urban Outfitters because that is like where individuals like that show this lifestyle that have this kind of personality shop. And like that is how we have been, that is what we've been fed, that's what we see. But this is what's deemed cool today. Like this is what used to be deemed cool forever ago. And honestly, nowadays, I'm pretty sure this is making a comeback because I've done this this presentation a couple times with students, and they're like, "Actually, I own pants just like that," and I'm like, "Cool." I now understand how far removed I am from the youth, but this shows this idea of how my training isn't my like formal education isn't marketing. I understand this. This is like what I think of. And this is the cycles. This is like showing how, at the end of the day, what they are selling you is not the product, but more so the idea. And to like show, just kind of get into that idea, we have a really interesting quote that's, our whole economy is based on planned obsolescence. We make good products, we induce people to buy them, and the next year we deliberately introduce something that makes those products look old-fashioned, out of date, obsolete. We do this for the soundest reason, to make money. And this is Brooke Stevens. This is from an industrial designer in 1958. And I think this is, it really makes you think. I mean, year to year, there's two types of planned obsolescence. There is, perceived obsolescence, and then there's like technological obsolescence. So can anyone think of any like forms of obsolescence that you all live with on your day-to-day, that you all see every day? Computer parts, cell phones is a good one. Cars, clothing, earbuds, printers. Yes, all of these things, pretty much everything that we interact with on a day-to-day, has some form of planned obsolescence. I mean, just going down this list, cars, like what do they really, from year to year, what are they really selling? Like we added a cup holder, or there's a new light, like right there where you kind of think you needed it. like phones is a really great one. I think it's the one that we're all probably most familiar with. Just thinking about like phone trends in general, and in like a pursuit to like make phones thinner, like prettier, more like appealing to the individual, they have become nearly impossible to like get into. I'm not that old. I'm 25 on a good day. But I still remember like it's still like pretty like long ago to like remembering when phones had like replaceable batteries, when you could easily go into your like phone and like you could take the battery out and put in a new one, and you didn't need to like do that. I used to have a Nokia where I had multiple batteries, and I would carry like one around in my backpack for when I needed to like switch it out. And like you can't do that anymore. I'm sure you all were pretty familiar. Apple was in some pretty hot water not too long ago because like they were literally not like they like were reducing the performance of phones and like efforts to save battery, but like they weren't allowing people to replace their battery. So obsolescence is kind of one of those things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And something that was talked about and that I saw in the chat, fashion. So we'll talk about fashion just because of the impact that it has globally. Fast fashion is something that we all are subjected to every day. We all have seen it. We all see it. Fashion in itself, the fashion industry, is the second largest consumer of water globally. It produces 20% of global water pollution, 10% of all carbon emissions. And then the average producer makes less than $3 a day. So a form of modern day slavery. It also, 85% of textiles are thrown away within a year of being made. And this one always sticks out to me. The 85% of all textiles are thrown away a year being made. And this is to like push trends. If you are, as individuals, like the way to like produce scarcity as a company is to throw away, to get rid of last year's clothing, because that way they can sell you this year's clothing. And also there's just a lot of issues with the clothing industry that's not fast fashion industry, and the sense that it's not the greatest for like the workers involved. We have an image here. This is a historic Ranza Plaza factory collapse of Bangladesh in 2013. This is pretty commonly referred to as the catalyst that started the whole fast fashion movement. Started a lot of individuals talking about fast fashion and focusing on focusing on like addressing the issue that is fast fashion as a whole. And that's just the clothing. That's just the clothing, and clothing in a lot of ways is a necessity. Like we are not in a point in society where we can live without clothing. Like we all need clothing, except, those few nudist colonies out there, power to them. And a lot of that can also be tied back to, and you might be thinking like, why are we like, this is a campus, like what are we talking about? This is like, why are we talking about clothes right now? And we talk about this because a lot of it can be tied back to the oil industry. The oil industry is ever growing, but at the same time, like ever under attack. You see every day, like there's more and more talk about like reducing oil use for fuel. So the oil industry is like, all right, what can we do? What can we talk about? Where can we then divert anything in all of our production to like make up for the loss in transportation, make up for the loss in fuel? And where you're seeing that is in plastics, and plastics are now in literally everything that we do. I mean, it's in our clothing, like that's polyester, all of those things. Plastics, the oil industry every day is like looking at plastics as their like backup plan for when oil or when like the fuel when as we're moving towards more like sustainable fuel and more sustainable like cars, they're like, all right, well, we have plastics to fall back on. And the whole plastics industry is blowing up in this same sense. And then we're also going to be talking, also thinking about like what happens to everything and all of that we throw away. Landfills, has anyone here ever gone to a landfill? I'm gonna open up the chat again just to see. Duck. Has anyone here ever been to a landfill? And if you have, you know, what are some things that maybe stuck out to you? Massive.
It depends on the landfill. I've been to a couple different landfills, and they're usually just giant pits of just trash, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. There's seagulls coming in. There's other animals that get in, sometimes bears, depending on where you live, and just kind of seems to be this kind of decaying, but kind of not decaying mountain of trash.
I don't know. So for me, one of the things that sticks out to me personally about landfills is how manufactured they are, in the sense that there's a lot of, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of thought that goes into building a landfill, but for all the wrong reasons. Landfills are purposely designed to not let things decay or decompose, or to like let things disappear. And that's for a lot of reasons, because of there's already so much pollution that comes from landfills, whether it be the carbon dioxide, the methane, the runoff. I remember I taking an environmental studies class, and it was like they called it the like garbage coffee that comes from landfills. But also, and like that's with everything engineered to like that point, but also thinking about where they're placed. Landfills are usually not in the private neighborhoods. They're usually not in the nicest of places. They're usually placed in communities of color or low income communities, or they're usually placed in out of sight, out of mind locations. Whether it be out of sight, out of mind for the individuals that live there, or just as far away from other people as possible. So then you're like, all right, well, landfills clearly not a great idea. So let's talk, and then looking at like landfills, like they produce 18% of the US's like ethane emissions. So landfills, clearly not a great idea. Well, what if I told you you can burn your trash and then no one wants it, and then we'll give you something that everybody wants: electricity, energy, waste to energy. Sounds like a great idea, I know. Except when you really look into it, it's kind of awful. Probably worse than landfills. Because incineration is often sold to us as this idea of waste to energy, but when you're talking about when you're talking about the like pollution that comes from this, like the dioxins, and then there is the like ash that comes from the landfills, and then like they're burning everything, but like once you burn everything, like once there's nothing left to burn, you're still left with this ash, and this ash is usually extremely toxic, extremely like poisonous, and can like both in the sense of it's where it's at, and then in like the wind, and if it gets blown away, and then you have to put this like toxic hazardous ash somewhere. So there's entire landfills dedicated to just the incineration, just the waste from the incinerators. And then they are notorious for their environmental violations. And just kind of looking at like, all right, like maybe it's worth it though. No, like looking at a whole other side of this, like carbon dioxide emissions from incinerators are worse than coal-fired power plants. So not only is it like not solving the problem of landfills, because we still need a landfill for all the ash that we're producing, not only is it like not extremely difficult because you're not always burning the most burnable material, it also produces more carbon, like CO2 emissions, than coal-fired power plants, which are already bad. And to like add a whole other side of things, like we were talking about the placement of these, I'm going to read a quick quote for you all. All socioeconomic groupings tend to resent nearby sitting of major facilities, but middle and upper class socioeconomic status possess better resources to effectuate their opposition. So what is this quote saying? Nobody wants to be near waste. Nobody wants to be near, whether it be, you know, a sewage plant or these landfills or incinerators. But people with better means are more likely to fight against us. So what does that tell you? Well, let's put it in areas where they're not going to like argue with us. So talking about this is focusing, there's like this whole practice called redlining. It's illegal nowadays, but like once you've already set up the system, even once after you make it illegal, the system remains. So this is Philadelphia. You're seeing they've divided up the city into quadrants, into the areas of like, all right, like where affluence, into areas of money, into areas of like where we don't want to place these things. And then they're redlining areas of lower income, which tend to be like Black and brown families, which tend to be immigrants, which tend to be all of these like individuals that have so many systemic issues already working against them. And now we're just going to put them next to, that's where we're going to put the incinerator. So now they have to deal with all the health implications that comes with that. And now they have to come and deal with all of the issues that come with that. And all of this is like if the infrastructure works like perfectly. Like that is the system, that's how the system is supposed to work. But what if it doesn't? What happens when the system doesn't go off without a hitch? And that's kind of what we're seeing now with plastics. That's kind of what we're seeing now with plastic. It's 9%. I'm sure we're all familiar with the quote, but only 9% of plastic that's ever been made has been recycled. The rest of it is in a landfill or in the ocean or is pollution somewhere. We've all seen the like statistics that in 2050, there'll probably be more plastic in the ocean than there are fish, which is not exactly the greatest thing. And all of that to say, yes, it's grim. Yes, it's dark, but we can do something about it. And we as a system, we as individuals, we as a campus, we as whoever, wherever you are, we can do something about it. And that's kind of Plan's whole like point of intervention theory. So I bring you back to the linear consumption economy, the red line of extraction, production, consumption, distribution, and disposal. And then comes the green line, or the different individuals interjecting or intervening within the system of, you know, resisting or redesigning or renewing or repairing, reusing, recovering, reclaiming, finding your point of intervention, finding where you can plug into this linear consumption economy to hopefully stop, reduce, and like rethink the waste that we are producing, or reducing and reusing and recovering and reclaiming and doing all of the things that we are doing. And together we can do something, and then together we're seeing it be done. And that's kind of where we see the role of campuses within this whole system. Campuses serve as a microcosm for communities, for local industry, for a lot of things. Campuses hold a lot of influence with their with the community, and also their students that are then going to go on and do things in the greater community. And that's, so it's key and it's vital that we are building these movements on college campuses and in their communities, because there hasn't been a movement in history that hasn't had, whether it be student or just youth support behind it. And we're just going to show a couple of examples. I mean, we saw it with the divestment movement. We saw it with the students against apartheid. We saw it with the SNCC movement. We saw it with, again, students protesting against the Vietnam War, the anti-war movement. We've seen it with, even nowadays, with the climate strikes that are led by youth, that are led by young people. And we see it on college campuses. We see colleges working on infrastructure change, whether it starting it with thrift stores so that they don't have to succumb to the whole cycle of fast fashion. We see it with students starting food recovery camp on their campus through donating excess food from the college campus to their great local community, to individuals who need it. We see it through move-out programs where they are collecting all of this that students would typically throw away and saving it to then give it back to keep it in circulation on the college campus. We see it through reuse and reuse and recovery workshops where we're teaching individuals on how to fix, how to sew, how to repair the things that they already have, so they don't automatically have to think that they have to buy new. We also see it with policy and advocacy change. This is one of my favorite stories about UCLA, how they got microplastics. So you all might not be familiar with this, but microbeads were these little microplastics that were typically found in toiletries. And they what they did was all right, well, they're awful for the environment. They go into the whole water system. They pollute the water system. It's not great for anybody involved. And they're all right, let's get this, we don't like this. Let's get this banned on our campus. So they went to their campus. They got student involvement. They banned these microbeads on their college campus. And they're all right, let's keep going. There's still more to go. So they got it then banned in the greater city of LA. And they're okay, we can keep going. Let's keep pushing. And then they got it banned in California. And then they're well, we're almost there. Might as well keep going. And then nowadays, microbeads are banned in the United States entirely. And this all started because of student movement on UCLA's campus. Started by students that had national policy effects. This other picture, it's talking about University of Puerto Rico banning plastic water bottles on their campus. And then I'd be remiss to not talk about Plan and talking about the Breakthrough from Plastic pledge that we've now had, I think, 14 schools sign. The first one being College of the Atlantic. And then just talking about research and innovation on a campus, whether it be like a whole student initiative, Soul Munch, they like started taking, it was like a bunch of students got together and like started taking food scraps and making cookies with them. Or, you know, hosting like a waste audit on a campus to like see who is producing waste, what can we do to reduce that waste, and or like Atlas, which is our own project where we are working with college campuses to rethink their entire system on how to reduce waste from not just from like the just not just from on how are we like recycling and composting and like the disposal side of things, but from the very start, from procurement of like who are the decision makers we need to talk to and how can we get them all in the same room so that we're all on the same page, so that we're all have a cohesive effort to reducing waste on this campus. And like all of this, there's so much more out there. And that kind of leads me into the closing of like, no one can do everything, but everybody can do something. And together we can fix this broken system. It's a lot of the times when we talk about waste, it's very daunting. A lot of the times we feel like we are alone, or we feel like we feel the weight of the world on our shoulders. And I'm here to tell you that it's not all on you. It's not all on you, the individual. Like there are more people like you. There are a lot of other individuals that like care about this just as much as you do. And through coalition building, through all of that, we can work together to fix the system that we have now. I'm gonna leave room for questions, but I also want to just do a quick little, like, if you found this, you're all plan members, get involved, reach out to me. We have an event that it's free for you all because you're a member school, which is like our Beyond Waste Student Summit. I can pass this along if you all want to learn more, probably. And then here's just my email.
And that's great. Yeah, and thank you so much for that. Quickly before we transition into the questions phase, Theo, do you want to talk about the Zero Waste Task Force?
Definitely. So as part of our partnership with Plan, and our signing of the Break Free from Plastic Pledge, with the public support that was behind that, we've created a Zero Waste Task Force led by Gia Lang, who is the ASG Social Responsibility Representative. The goal of the Zero Waste Task Force is to enact the Break Free from Plastic Pledge on Bellevue College's campus. And as part of that process, we are trying to get stakeholders involved that need to be there, and students and staff and faculty that are interested in being a part of that movement and being a part of that process. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, if this talk resonated with you at all, please reach out to ASG Social Responsibility Representative Gia Lang. We're going to put her email in the chat. She is the go-to person, the point person for this task force. And the goal and some of the actions this task force is going to be taking going forward is speaking with major stakeholders at Bellevue College in purchasing and operations to identify places where we can rethink and redesign and reduce and reuse materials on campus. So, yeah. Anything else you want to add there to that, Ramiro? And all this is happening in support, with the support of Plan's team, to make sure that we're optimizing this process as much as we can.
Yeah, I don't think there's much I want to add there. Y'all are working with Young, who is our like Break Free from Plastic representative, and they do incredible work. Like I said.
Great. So let's open it up to questions now. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Ramiro? Feel free to unmute yourself or to type it into the chat. Can be anything to do with waste, anything to do with plan, or if you've got questions more about the zero waste task force that Theo is talking about, we'll take any of those questions.
If y'all don't have questions, I can keep plugging plan stuff. Don't worry. I have plenty to talk about plan related. And I mean, as questions are coming up, Amber, would you mind if I shared my screen real quick on
Go for
just to show you all a couple of the things that plan you all have access to as like a new plan member? All right. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. Let me just pull this up. And just as you all feel free to like throw in some questions, I'm going to share with you all just some of Plan's resources that you all have access to. So share. Hopefully you all can see this. So this is the Plan website, postlandfill.org. When you get here, you can go to like log anybody with a Bellevue email address. And if I need to make sure this is set up, so if this doesn't work, let me know. But you can go to login, and then when you're first doing it, you'll want to register and register with your we need to update this, but register with your Bellevue email. It needs to be with your Bellevue email because that's how like our system knows that you are like that you have an account, like that you're willing like have an account with us. So when you do that, then you'll set everything up, and then you get to go into just our like website. So
There's a question if registration is necessary.
Registering for the yes, registering for the website is necessary, specifically just to get access to all of the like resources that come in the website, which I'm going to go through here in a second. It might show the back end because I'm an admin. Yep. Visit site. This won't show up for you all. This just happens because I do website stuff too. Once you're logged in, you can go into the member hub right here. And in the member hub, you have access to you'll have access to all of Plan's resources. Plan has a variety of different resources. We have, this is just talking about our as a member school, you'll have free registration for the Beyond Waste Student Summits. We have one not this weekend, but next weekend, May 1st. You also have access to all of Plan's digital resources. This is like a variety of manuals, different things like that. Leadership certification is like a self-guided certification that you can do as a student. And we also have a discount directory. This just has a bunch of discounts with Plan partners with a variety of just discounts that you all have access to now as Plan members. So if like you have a club or something that you want to purchase something for, you can buy, like we work really close with a Clean Canteen, and you can purchase like custom made water bottles with Clean Canteen, things like that. It keeps opening things in new tabs, which I'm not sure you all can see. Actually, I can't see them. Can you all see this tab, the partner directory?
Yes.
Ah, perfect. So yeah, you can see like a couple of our partners. So like, depending on what you're looking for, we have a bunch of different partners, and then a bunch of manual resources. So we have like the program case library, which is a directory of just case studies from all over, from like whatever and anything that you want to find. So like behavioral change, break free from plastic, bins and signage, construction, compost, education. And this is collated by this Plan team. So like any topic that you can think of, we probably have something covered here, as well as all of our manuals ranging from compost to like starting a free thrift store, to like a move out manual, plastic free, reuse for good, stuff like that. So we have a ton of resources accessible to everybody that you all now have access to. So we go check them out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Last chance for any questions. Not seeing any in the chat. Okay, well, with that, I would like to thank you, Ramiro, for your time today and for your insightful presentation. I know we've all learned something that we will take with us as we work for a more inclusive and sustainable future. A reminder to all the attendees, thank you so much for attending, and check out the rest of our Earth Week events by going to the link I've just posted into the chat. And we'll also post the recording to this event there later. Thank you for coming. See you soon.